5 years old, she minded better than Grace, who was nearly 10 and ought to know better. In her pink-dotted Swiss sundress and white Mary Janes, Sissy reminded Grace of a plump, ruffled cushion. Except a cushion didn't whine and whimper the way Sissy did when Mother and Daddy weren't around to see what a pain she could be. What a sweet child, people were always saying about Sissy. No one ever said such things about Grace, with her perennially scabby knees and the look on her face of always wanting to know more than she was being told. When Grace had once asked her mother why they couldn't all move to Washington to live with Daddy, why they had to wait in case he didn't get elected to another term, Mother had snapped, "You ask too many questions." According to Mother, it wasn't exactly polite to ask so many questions. Now Grace was silent as Daddy pulled up at the curb in front of a small, shabby yellow house tucked back behind some overgrown shrubs and low-hanging trees. She watched him as he threw open his door, turning to her only after he had one leg out. "Look after your sister here. I won't be long." Daddy sounded out of breath as he stretched out his big red-knuckled hand to pat Grace's knee. Grace didn't understand why they couldn't come inside with him. At the office, Margaret always greeted them with a smile. Sometimes she had a package of lemon wafers hidden in a desk drawer, and she'd make a great show of letting Grace and Sissy each have one while pretending to keep it a secret from Daddy. Why wouldn't Margaret want to see them now? Grace wanted to say something about how scared and worried she felt, but she nodded and said, "Okay, Daddy." "That's my good girl." He called her that ever since she could remember, his good girl. But she wasn't always good, and she seldom minded. It wasn't that she didn't try, it was just that she was so curious. When told to stay put, she couldn't help poking her head around a doorway or tiptoeing to the top of the stairs to hear or see what it was the grown-ups wanted to shut her out of. Like the time Daddy objected because Mother's sister Selma got married and Gemma and Charles weren't invited to the wedding. "Blessin' is the deep South, Jean. You and your committee have done wonders as far as the Negras are concerned, but you can't expect things to change overnight." Mother's voice came drifting up the stairs of their Park Avenue pre-war, where Grace sat crouched behind the carved newel post. "Of course, I agree they should have been invited. They've been with our family since I was in diapers. But you know, Mother, she would have had another stroke if I insisted." Daddy muttered something that sounded like Grandma's having another stroke might not be such a bad idea, as far as he was concerned. Then, as if to show Mother he hadn't meant it, he said teasingly, "Cordelia, I sometimes think you married me just to shock your mother." Grace had known then by the rich, booming sound of his laughter as it swelled up and out like a great balloon that he wasn't blaming Mother for Grandma Claiborne's stubbornness. Now, as Grace watched her father's broad, sloping back disappear up the shaded front path, she itched to run after him. She wondered what Margaret's house was like inside. She'd never thought of her as being anywhere but behind the front desk in Daddy's office, with its big black typewriter and neat stacks of papers. But she couldn't follow Daddy. She'd promised. She fished in the pocket of her jumper for her own red licorice. She wasn't like Sissy, who gobbled up treats as if she were a fat little goldfish. She liked to save things for later. It was more fun that way, looking forward to something for hours, sometimes a whole day. But when she pulled out the licorice Daddy had given her this morning, she saw that it had gotten all sticky and was covered in little flecks of lint. She chewed on it anyway, mad at herself, and mad at Sissy, who was too young to know what was going on. "I'm hot," Sissy whined. Grace rolled both front windows down, all the way down. "There," she said, trying to sound the way Mother did when she meant for a subject to be closed, once and for all. "I'm still hot." Sissy squirmed beside her. The sun beating in through the windshield made the shade-drenched trees alongside the house look like a cool creek, daring Grace to roll up her pant legs and wade in. Grace, hot and irritable herself, snapped, "You're not. And if you don't leave those shoes on, I'll slap you."